Hello everyone and welcome in to everyone's final race in the Twilight Cup Season 2. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a real good one. First off, some info that we of course need to cover being in the championship finale. It is all about wrapping up the championship for all of these drivers. So we have, as a reminder, we have three classes. We have Pro, we have Pro-Am, and we have Amateur. In the Pro division, we have a fairly strong position for Daniel Moffat, who has got himself the P1 spot, and he has got himself a healthy lead of 16 points to the next driver who is out on track, and that will be Brian Anderson. So Claudio Zaza's not racing this round, so he is going to be at best finishing second in the Pro Championship, and Brian Anderson has an opportunity here to push for some points. But Moffat has been absolutely dominating, and even here we'll drop into free practice to get some initial impressions, but it looks like Moffat could be on for another winner. Going into the Pro-Am circuit, we have Richard Cook with 182 points and the one to keep an eye out for. But Craig Starkey in the second position is another driver who has really shown their moxie, put in some good results over the last few rounds, and even if they had a little bit of an iffy one last time out and didn't quite get the finishing position of 6th last time in class, they have seen a string of P1s and P2s. So they definitely have a chip on their shoulder and a point to prove, and they're so far the fastest Pro-Am driver in practice, so we'll keep an eye on them very intently. Then finishing off with the Amateur Series, we have Scott Cameron, who has absolutely dominated, and Roger Dismukes is not racing tonight, so P3 of Gavin Sullivan, he's got his work cut out, but with 28 points difference between himself and P1, it's looking like it might be doors with the Amateur and the Pro Championships. Pro-Am is going to be where it's all at tonight. So as a reminder, folks, we are in the Nurburgring GP circuit, and that means we have an iconic motorsport track and a heck of a finale for tonight's round. Key things to note: it is a 30-minute practice, which we're coming to the final 10 minutes or so of. We have a 20-minute qualifying session where everyone is free to get as much running as they can in, get their best laps in, and then you also have the race, which is 60 minutes, not 90 minutes. We have seen a couple of 90-minute races where you have fuel and tyre pit stops, but that is not the case tonight. It is a 60-minute race. The pit stop is mandatory still, but it is fuel only. You do not need to get a fresh set of tyres, you just need to fuel up sufficiently for the race. So that is where we currently stand. So 51.37 meters, 17 corners, the three classes. White numbers denote the Pro class, silver numbers denote the Pro-Am, and red numbers denote the Amateur. So that is where we stand, and that is where we stay. So with everyone's driving out here tonight, they're going to be bringing their A game, they're going to be bringing their best, and I ask of you, who you think is going to win in each class? Are we going to see Daniel Moffat take another dominant win? Because Sergei Krasnov in the Porsche could be one that would keep an eye on, as well as Paul Sims, who often brings a lot of pace, just loses out slightly on the consistency front. You could see in the Pro-Am class Craig Starkey taking a surprise win against Richard Cook to sweep the championship in the dying moments. This could be where the championship is decided for them here. And then also in the Amateur Championship, is Scott Cameron going to continue his realm of dominance and complete untouchability in terms of performance? Only one race outside of the podium, and even then with the drop round system, that means they have technically finished every race result P3, P2 or P1, which is absolutely mental. That is insane consistency from Scott Cameron there. But we're about to jump in, folks, and with everyone ready to go, let's get in and let's watch some racing. So we jump onto the field, and the first person we get ourselves having an eye on is going to be Craig Starkey, of course, the one we mentioned, and one to keep an eye. Currently P5 on track overall. It's going to be a 56.160 for him. Or sorry, 55.660, I should say. My mistake there. So he is going to be pushing. He is going to try and get as much practice as he can. A little bit slower than his best there, but he is going to be pushing through nonetheless. James Payton, only Audi driver on the field. You will notice also we have a reduced field in the race tonight. So typically see it happen, but when you get to the end of a series, a lot of drivers do end up bowing out if they're at the back of the championship, or even if they are not just in the top flight. You do see drivers bowing out, which is a shame. You want to see them through to the end, but it sometimes happens. It is an inevitability in some cases in the sim racing scene. So let's see how it goes. I'm keeping a good eye on James Payton here. It looks like they got a new livery as well. As well as many other drivers having a brand new livery. So keep an eye for some fresh designs out on the track. We're coming up to the final stages of practice. Here are your times and here are your sectors. Things to note are that Sergei Krasnov in the Porsche dominates the first sector, 0.110. Very clean to the rest of the field, with Paul Sims, now we mentioned about pace, but Paul Sims has dominated sectors 2 and 3. Moffat's consistency brought him up into the P1 and eventually the P2, but it's got to be the peak pace of Paul Sims that could pose the biggest threat. If he can get a lap nailed with a great first sector, he could easily take the pole here. You can see 9 laps of practice. And plenty of push from everyone involved here. Rest of the field, Brian Anderson, of course, so 55.527. Starkey with a 0.605. And slightly decreasing his gap. With Richie Cook and James Payton pushing on, pushing hard. And he did get a time, but it's a 56.230. He did not improve on that latest run. We've got a few drivers who have yet to really get an opportunity to push and get themselves out in practice. But we will be keeping a close eye as we are going to be heading very soon into the full quali and eventually the full race. But let's see what we can do. We've got 2 minutes 50 left. Let's watch patiently as we have Brian Anderson, currently P4 in the pro and the overall standings on track. The track is currently fast. It's quite cool, in fact. It's looking overcast, so we do sync up with real-time weather. So the track is not at ideal conditions. It is suboptimal. Of course, what that means is drivers are going to have to account for that with things like tracks and tyre surface temps playing havoc on the tyres and their consistency. Because the track is 24, but the ambient is 19, so that might interact with the car in a myriad of ways. But on board with Brian Anderson, comes across the line, 0.952. He's not going to get that improvement he so desperately desires. Pradco now, by comparison, they moved up to the Pro-Am class after their absolutely domineering performance in their debut round. So there was a little bit of a class readjustment. It was very clear that he was out of the realm of the amateurs. So he did get moved up. And looks like he's got a healthy improvement on his previous. Looks like a fairly solid run here. Is he going to get a big jump here in the free practice laps? He's going to be doing good, and he's going to get about half a second on his previous. So 55.717 is going to net him very nicely. He's going to put him P2 in class. Final minute of free practice now. And you can see, short of Regazzoni, it's looking like everyone is fairly evenly spaced out. Regazzoni not going out, though. Dismukes, only driver who has not gone for a run at all here in free practice, or at least not one that has a trackable time. Looks like Priatko is going to continue going, though, and continue trying to make improvements. So he's really pushing here. But I think free practice is going to end before the lap is up. Don't think he's going to get that opportunity to throw us a little bit of an early sign here in FP. Here we go, final few seconds in free practice. And there we are. So flag is falling, and we're just waiting on a few drivers to finish their runs. And if not, they'll be jumped back within a few seconds. You see the max wait time ticker is engaged. It's just Priatko and Cook still on track, and then quali will begin. Is Priatko going to get any practice improvement? Looks like he did, but we didn't get a chance to catch it. And it looks like immediately everyone is out in full force. Paul Sims going to be first out on track in his Lamborghini. Here we go, 20 minutes is already ticking down, so drivers have got to be absolutely rapid in getting out. Now we wait and see who is going to come out on top. See, great detail in these cars. I never really truly appreciated the car models and how much work goes into them, but these things look absolutely crisp. And here we go, folks. Quali is fully underway. Seems to be having some mic issues because I commentated over the half of the lap there. Seems to be a couple of mic issues. But doesn't matter. Paul Sims, we're going to be the one keeping on board with. Richard Cook is right behind, however, and he's going to be very close to the back of this Lamborghini. Now, I wonder, is he going to try and get a better run? Or potentially even get past. Now, it's not typically seen that people go for overtakes in qualifying as opposed to just being blocked, because then you blow up both laps. It kind of gets thrown in your face. So it's not something I particularly recommend on. It looks like initial runs are looking promising. Richard Cook with a very good first sector along with Paul Sims. They're both keeping some tight proximity. Cook is no doubt going to be affected by the dirty air of the car up ahead. And I'm very curious to see what the final times are going to be, considering the proximity to one another and, of course, those two and the pace that they are carrying. What was that? A little bit of slide coming out of Cook there. And now we wait and see who is going to be the one to dominate as we come into the third and final sector now. Tight double chicane. Navigated very nicely. Plenty of the curb. And Sims now. Final corner. Turn 17. Big push. Heavy on the throttle. Give it as much as he can. It's a 56.1. Cook 2.5 tenths behind. Krasnov with a 55.7. Daniel Moffat with a 55.1. So immediately the track has been set alight. Dmitry Mishin now going to be coming through on the amateur side of things. There's a few more drivers are going to be coming through. Big Starkey had a time. Mishin 5 seconds behind. A few more drivers who've got invalidations. They're not going to be counted. Gavin Sullivan won. Gavin Sullivan is one to keep an eye on. Nick Rizzoni is going to be one who comes through with a really good one, as Gavin Sullivan does get an invalidation. Robert Homer now going to be another driver in the amateur field, and you have Priadko coming in and splicing the pro drivers with a really good time, a 55.385. Excellent stuff there for Priadko. And they've got final few corners for Robert Homer, who we're going to be keeping a close eye to, as they seem to be on good form, carrying a good amount of pace, with a very striking livery to boot. Final couple of corners now. 16 done, 17. So Scott Cameron did a very good run as well earlier. Can Robert Homer put himself in a good spot? Yes, he can. There's a 56.315 for him. Got Brian Anderson now, another driver who has definitely got some pace about them and definitely got a point to prove. So turn 14 here, looking nice. Actually, that's turn 13. This is turn 14. And then straight before the double chicane. Who is that above, ahead of them? Now that is Dmitry Mishin. And they seem to be on a bit of a run as well. But it's going to be Brian Anderson that we stick on board with as he rounds turn 17. Final push here. Pushing it absolutely to the limit as we come through. It's a P2 spot with a 54.785. And Moffat with a 54.5. Absolutely eclipsing the prior standing. There's going to be someone who has come off there and gone into the gravel, it looks like. That is Priadko, who has just pushed it a little bit too wide. You can see in the background, Scott Cameron into the pits. Gavin Sullivan, going to be a 0.325, 6.3. So very good run there from him. So now is going to be the game of chance and the game of testing the limits, testing the waters to see how far they can go. Moffat is one that is looking very strong here, and in fact seems to be gaining time on his previous. He switched up the livery, but he's not switched up the attitude and the pace. So pushing through here now. Turn 13, nice and deep in. Watch the car sort of lean onto the body. So there's again a little bit of body roll there, but the suspension is dialed in for this occasion. Turns 15 and 16 now. You can hear him on the brakes. Just enough to get around the chicane. Narrowly avoids the posts. Turn 17 now, getting a good amount of speed. Is it going to be a new best? Is it going to be an improvement? As you see, Krasnov go P2, Moffat go P1 again with an even bigger time difference. That is down to a 4.372 for the McLaren driver. So excellent job there. Paul Sims has started a lap as well, so they are going to be pushing. But James Payton is one who is really looking to define themselves and get some form here. They look very quick here in this Audi. Being a bit of the oddball, is the only one on the track to be driving it. He is the only instance of a single car in an entire group being driven. Because even the Porsches, and to a lesser extent the Mercedes, there's 2 of each. 2x2. But Payton's going to go one step further. Just shy of Paul Sims by 33 milliseconds, but a 55.260. That is nothing to scoff at. Richard Cook now, he of course our incumbent leader of the Pro-Am division and the driver that we need to keep an eye on, as he is the one to beat. For everyone with a grey name, he is the one to beat. Luckily, we've had a few more joiners from the amateur and from the Pro-Am division. So we are up to 16 rather than the 14 we initially started with, which is always great to see. See a couple more jumps coming through. That's Robert Homer getting an improvement before heading back into the pits. But Richard Cook could be looking to usurp that time and do so quite dramatically. A little bit more of the curb than he might have liked. He does tap it into the grass a little. So here we go, final corner. A little bit of an early apex, but he does cruise out on the power. He does still keep good time. And then across the line here, it is going to be P6. So that's going to put him P2 in class and just behind Payton. So very good display of speed there. Now, is Regazzoni going to respond with anything? Of course, bottom of the class right now in P7. And seemingly stuck behind another car. That is going to be him stuck between a rock and a fast place. As he's going to come across the line, he's not going to get an improvement. Not sure who that is. That is not Brian Anderson. That is not Craig Starkey. Believe that was, yeah, that was Dmitry Mishin that was in front there. You can see everyone has, for the most part, committed and finished their laps. You've got Brian Anderson, who's coming to finish one here. Let's check on how he's doing. Powering it through. Across the line here. An improvement. Yes, it is an improvement, but it's not enough to displace Krasnov out of P3. A few more drivers who are looking to get out and get a good run on the board. You've got, for instance, say Bruce Hopkins. He's going to be pushing hard. You can see everyone, for the majority of it, is either starting their laps or is on a run here. But Bruce Hopkins does improve to P13. Gets past Scott Cameron. But how long is that going to stand? Gavin Sullivan is looking very quick, very pacey indeed. Oh, that is Priadko. Not sure what happened there. Let's see what happened with Priadko here in quali. You can see he's just going for a push. It goes very wide here in turn 1. And then coming out of turn 2, just gets a snap, and that's straight in the wall for him there. That is unfortunate for the Mercedes. And that is going to be certainly a bruise, if nothing else, to the ego. I do not envy these drivers right now, because they're having to put every ounce of effort in for these quali laps. You can see you've got James Payton running very slow. Anderson is up, however. So we'll keep aboard with him for now. All he needs is 1.3 or 0.13 seconds. That's all he needs. But in the racing world, that is a very hefty difference. So what matters is he needs to nail this final section. If he wants to get past Priadko, he has to absolutely nail it. He's going to gun it down to the start-finish line. Is he going to push it in? Yes, he's going to go one further. He's going to leapfrog Paul Sims as well, as the 2 to 4 positions are condensed into just 18 milliseconds of time. See James Payton running again very slow. I wonder if they've got damage of sorts, because they seem to be running excessively slow, which is a concern. Robert Homer now. Pushing and continuing. Of course, P6 in class. 0.3 of a second to find before they can comfortably get past Barham. Is he going to find it here? So far, looking good. Very clean line through turn 14. Setting up just after the sector time cutoff. Goes through the post. And 17. There you go. See, very tight. Oh, but it's too tight to the apex there as he bumps on the exit. Loses quite a lot of speed there. In the end, it is an improvement still, but it is not enough. And I think with that bump, he could have easily got P9, if not faster. A few more drivers to look for. Regazzoni needs to see an improvement. They haven't got any traffic. All going to come down to the last sector, I imagine. And he seemingly teleported into the Shadow Realm for a split second. Apparently that's something these drivers can do now. Just go into the Shadow Realm at will. I'm very impressed. Quite the talent they got there. But here we are, Regazzoni, cross the line. It is going to be enough. He's going to be 0.03 of a second ahead of Homer, and he's going to inherit the P10 spot. So very good job from him there. You've got a few more drivers who are coming through. Craig Starkey now. He's going to be P8, and of course, he wants to be pushing himself up there as a potential challenger for the championship. Comes through. Very good line on the exit. He goes 6th fastest, 55.2. He's just about 20 milliseconds clear of Payton. If he can get that tiny increment of improvement, he could put himself into a very strong position. Daniel Moffat is going to be one we jump on board with, however, as he's going to be pushing to go even faster and cement even more of a quali lead as Gavin Sullivan goes for the big swingers, and he's going for the P10 spot. Jumps past Regazzoni and Homer here. But here you go, Daniel Moffat, any time improvement? It is going to be a time improvement. It's going to be 1.5 seconds. Or 1.5 tenths of a second. Apologies. So 0.227 is now the time that stands as the pole. And I'm not sure what any of these other pro drivers can meaningfully do to respond. Doesn't seem like there's going to be much. Robert Homer now. Across the line. Any improvement from him there? He wants to get the place back. And he does in very strong fashion because he goes to P9. So past Sullivan and Barham for good measure. Puts him 5th in class. And you are starting to see now the very strong class divide as Gavin Sullivan bows out off the track in order to allow the faster traffic to go through. Good bit of racing etiquette being shown there, that is for sure. Yeah, lets them all go by. Good racing standards and competitive conduct being shown there, as always. As we come to expect from these leagues. Drivers. Paul Sims. Driver to watch out for, pace-wise, certainly could have it. And one of the drivers that has shown times before that they do have the pace and they do have the wherewithal to really put in some absolute tank slappers of laps. Let's see what he can do here. He does seem a little bit slow through the second sector. I'm not sure if he's particularly gaining time. There are a few drivers who are coming through now. So James Payton, he's just not going to get an improvement, for instance. Going to be no improvement there. Richard Cook, no improvement also. I think he had a bit of a mishap earlier in his run. You got Daniel Moffat, who is off on track. So the safety could have briefly come out, or at least the yellow flags were waving. We're going to hop aboard with Sergei Krasnov now, as he seems to be making massive improvements on his time. Very clean Sector 2, chasing down the leaders. Just put in that consistent run. We have 2 minutes here left in qualifying. And it is time to see who can bring their A game here in the race. Krasnov is looking very strong. He could potentially inherit P2 with this time. Just to make it clean. 15, 16, 17. Oh, he could go one better. He could be very close. The delta is hovering around 0.3 of a second. As he comes across the line, he is going to get it. He's going to get P2. Very nicely done there. Unfortunately, not close enough for the P1 because he did briefly cross over in terms of being faster than Moffat at that point in the lap, but P2 is still a mighty fine achievement. As we come to the final minute here in qualifying, this is the last chance. This is the Hail Mary of all drivers to get their shots in and see what can happen. So let's go and check with Regazzoni. Just wanted to see what happened as we came through here. It looks like he just took a little bit too much of the corner and is going to be sort of paying the price. But here we are, final few laps here now as quali is going to be drawing to a close. Richard Cook just up ahead got an invalidation and is going to be bowing out. You see him pulling into the pit lane. He's done. He's got best in class, and that's the best he can really do, unless Starkey does have a big message to send. Gavin Sullivan does come across. It's a 57.2. It's not going to be an improvement, but of course we'll keep an eye on him very shortly. Paul Sims, is he going to be able to cross the line and get another go? That is the question. He's going to just about make it with a couple seconds to go, and he's going to be seeing himself in a very good spot. So Gary Barham comes across the line. P8 total time is in a close here in quali, and drivers are now coming through. Daniel Moffat out with a 0.227. Very, very good performance here. Eyes on Craig Starkey as he's about to cross the line. You have Priadko just a little bit further behind, and then Scott Cameron just a little bit further ahead. Comes across the line. Scott Cameron does improve, but it's not substantial enough. But Craig Starkey, he does make an improvement, and he goes best in class. He's gone with a very, very good time, a 55.055. And let's see if there can be any meaningful responses. So Brian Anderson coming through here. Is he going to be getting a meaningful improvement? Is he going to walk away with that P2 on the stand? And he's not. He's going to improve, but it's not enough to leapfrog Krasnov. So the last couple of drivers here coming through. You've got Gavin Sullivan. Needs to be putting down some good times. Of course, he has got best in class. He has got the P1 for the amateur group. But what if he could go further? What if he could really make a start putting some pressure on the Pro-Am group by leapfrogging one of their competitors? That's what we're going to see if he can do as he comes across the chicane here. It does go wide, unfortunately. That is sad. Just loses the car a little bit. He is not going to have a valid lap this session. Disappointing to see, because that would have been a really good one. That was 55.6. That would have seen him overtake Robert Homer on the standings. Paul Sims. Nice driving. And nice racer. It comes across, and there you go. That is your session over, folks, as Priadko had finished their lap. And there you go. You can see the timing. So front row is going to go to Daniel Moffat and Sergei Krasnov. Brian Anderson and Paul Sims take the second row, with Craig Starkey and Richard Cook in the third. James Payton, Gary Barham, Priadko, Homer, Sullivan, Regazzoni, Hopkins, Cameron, Mishin, and Dispukes take the rest of the standings. Take a quick short intermission as we have ourselves getting ready for the race. and we will be right back with you, folks. Don't go anywhere. Alright, folks, we are back. Thank you for your patience. And we are about to get into things good and proper. So, as a reminder, it is, as we try to sort out a little bit of a technical bug with the spec cam. It is going to be a heck of a race ahead of us. So 60 minutes, only fuel on the pit stop. And here we go. We are in things, and we can see that everyone is getting themselves poised and ready to get ourselves going. So I welcome the drivers to be brave and to push and to give it their absolute all. Here we go, folks. 10 seconds before we get into the race good and proper. Let us know who you think is going to be coming out on top and who you think is going to be giving us some big surprises as we are now getting into the session good and proper. You can see all our times and see all our drivers forming up, and it is time for the formation lap and to see everyone get going. You can hear the engines. You can hear them going. As everyone is going to be racing to get their car warmed up, get their tyres warmed up. I want to start seeing some glowing exhausts and glowing brakes. So let's see who is going to give it everything tonight. And you are going to see some very interesting change-ups to the order. We do have Krasnov really taking a swing. And coming in P2. So this is it. Here we go. We've certainly got some great drivers here tonight. And before we continue on anything else, I just want to say it's been amazing to cast this season. Been amazing to watch these drivers grow and watch them really showcase their talents and what they can do. So it has been an amazing experience, and my first foray into Assetto Corsa. It has been a heck of a journey, but that journey is soon to close. And that journey comes to that close tonight here at the Nurburgring, as we're now going to have everyone lining up double file, about 70 kilometers an hour, for the final race of Twilight Season 2. And here we go. This is it. This is time to go. This is time to go racing. And immediately we're already seeing a little bit of tussling. We saw Craig Starkey and James Payton come together. Everyone's going to be going for as much position as they can. Little bit of squeeze on the inside. Payton is going to be the one who drops down quite significantly in all of this. You can see he's already got himself down into P10, and you've got Richard Cook on the back of Craig Starkey here. He's going to be going on the inside, and he's going to really be pushing for that move. A little bit of contact there between the two, and Starkey has to go very much on the infield. Cook goes wide, and Starkey is going to have to play the defensive. You can also see that there's going to be a very different perspective, because from behind there is a McLaren, and that is going to be Gavin Sullivan really trying to push for some early moves. So Moffat here has got himself a very neat and tidy getaway. And he has got himself, in these crucial times, about half a second's worth of gap, which means absolutely everything in the context of this race. So he's going to have to keep his wits about him still, at least for the next few laps. And the pit window, reminder, it ends and begins within 10 minutes of the start and finish. So from 50 minutes, it will open, and at 10 minutes, it will close. In that 40-minute time span, drivers need to get a pit stop down with fuel for finishing the race. They do not have to change compound, they do not have to change tyres, but they will have to get a sufficient amount of fuel in them to finish the race. And this is where we're going to see some strategic variation. We're going to see drivers push to get themselves a healthy gap and get themselves ahead of other drivers with a fuel deficit, or they might play a little bit more of the long game so they can get a later swing. But eyes right now are on the middle of the pack. And eyes right now are on Priadko as he's coming up to the back of Gary Barham. It's going to be one to watch. He's a very clean driver, very pacey driver. He's got himself quite the trouble on his hands. Starkey has fallen back. And we do see that James Payton has also gone down into P10. Ooh, a little bit of... Is that a little bit of issues there? So we could, of course, see... We do have a little bit of race control that could get involved between two cars. So just to sort of review again on the start and what happened here. This is between the 6 and 26 car. You see massive contact being made between Sullivan and Homer just off to the side. That is going to be something that may be scrutinized by the stewards. Remember, we do have live stewarding in these races as well. So drivers have got to keep it safe, keep it clean, and don't be overzealous with your racing. I'm going to keep a close eye on Craig Starkey. We do see a couple of trades coming up further ahead. Priadko is looking mighty strong, but Paul Sims is going to be the one to watch. In fact, I think we're going to see, if we go back here, we're going to see Paul Sims, and oh yeah, that is going to be brutal for him. So that was the cause of it. That was a race that was going well, but Brian Anderson had other plans, just outbraked himself, and Paul Sims now down in P7 here in the race. Andrew Priadko, another driver who has been putting in good work, and I think they're going to be going for a move here. You can see that Barham has lost time massively with oh, that is Gavin Sullivan completely out of it, and I'm not sure what's happened there, but I think the timing board just had a little bit of an aneurysm, as this has been another car. Let's see, this is Roger Dismukes. Let's see what's gone on here. So comes in turn 12, just loses the car, loses the rear, and makes sure that he comes to a safe stop on track in order to prevent incident. Let's see if Paul Sims can make a recovery. He might have got some... Let's see if he can make a little bit of recovery. He might have some aero damage, which could play a crucial role. You see a little bit trading further back as you've got James Payton, who's just made it round Gavin Sullivan. And he's done a very good job of getting his car back on track. He has got quite a bit of work ahead of him. He's P5 in class after we did lose one of our Pro-Am drivers. Again, was on 16 cars, now down to just 15. Gavin Sullivan, of course, coming in close. Craig Starkey, another one that we will keep an eye on here. And it's looking like all has calmed down. We didn't see that much drama in the initial stages of the race like one might have expected, which is always nice to see. We don't want any drama. As much as it's always chaotic and always entertainment, you don't want people to be losing out on their races. And for drivers, it's a close race and a clean race that they want, not a dirty one that is ending up being a recovery drive. That's a key distinction there that I think all drivers need to remind themselves of from time to time. So a very crucial marker. Everyone has already spread out to within about a second of themselves, and they don't really have much in the way of realistic challenge. So they've all got to work hard, and they've all got to get themselves into a prime position where they can go for some overtakes. But there is such a thing as being too overzealous. Brian Anderson has been awarded a 10-second time penalty for his incident against Paul Sims. That is going to see him be dropped quite significantly in the standings by the end of it all. And that is where we see the penalties are going to be coming in. Gary Barham now is going to be the one that we switch our focus to, as he is chasing down Starkey for a potential spot. There's going to be a little bit of infighting in this sort of middle pack here. Doesn't seem to be much movement elsewhere. We could see a little bit more movement down the bottom end, as we could see that Dismukes is going to be pushing to get closer to Mishin and eventually overtake him. All eyes on Priadko though, as Priadko has gone wide and has lost out quite significantly. Now Paul Sims is going to be chasing him down and looking for any potential move on him. I don't know, let's see if there's going to be any movement here. And this is currently where we stand. So your timings and live leaderboard do take a bit more time to update, but your current standings are that Daniel Moffat and Sergei Krasnov have really run away in terms of race and pace. And Brian Anderson alongside Richard Cook take up P3 and P4. Priadko, who are on board with now, kind of playing a little bit of defensive balance. He's both trying to catch up to Cook and also fending off Paul Sims. That's the reason we're staying on him for so long, is because he's got a tale of two battles that he's trying to balance and contest. And you can see he's getting closer to Cook. He's trying to close the gap, really put down the hammer and get some pressure onto the fellow Mercedes, as if to say, I am coming for that P4 position, and you're going to have to fight very hard if you want to stop me. You can see all that is going to be, yeah, a little bit of a send coming there from Priadko, but he is going to have the inside line, and he's going to make it work. He's going to hold it all together. He's going to keep the pressure down. Is Cook going to have any form of retaliation? You see much inside line. And it is looking like a four-way battle is very soon set to commence. Priadko leads the queue, with Richard Cook, Paul Sims and Craig Starkey being your drivers to watch throughout this session. We remain on board with them as they're going to be continuing their onslaught and their search for P4. I think the fight to the leaders might be truly lost for them, but Brian Anderson is going to get that demotion, so winner of this fight will be getting a podium place, and I think that is a lot more important here. On board with Starkey as our racer of choice. He's going to keep some momentum. He's going to see if he can get something on Paul Sims. Is he going to have anything though? He's going to be pushing for a place. Keep saying that. But he is really just giving it everything that he can. There's not really any other way to say it. He is really putting in the work. You can see him trying to dart left and right, trying to look for positions, get any kind of advantage or information that he can regarding his opponents. And that way, he can start to strategize and start to plan his movement. Alright, thank you for your patience, folks. Looks like we got the microphone issue sorted once again. Apologies for the technical issue. Looks like Paul Sims, very interestingly, has come into the pit. So to recap, not much movement in terms of the fight between the top three. And not much movement in terms of the next three either, though Paul Sims has gone into the pits, and that has made a major difference. You see the Helicam has a little bit of a moment there, very interestingly, and you do have a couple of drivers who are going to get some promotions and demotions, like you got, for instance, Hopkins, who is going to be losing the spot to Scott Cameron after going a little bit wide coming through turn 2. He's going to be looking for a retaliation. He's going to be looking for retaliation, but he is not going to get it. Bruce Hopkins remains down in P11. And there's not going to be any movement anytime soon. Starkey has lost a significant amount of time to Richard Cook, who in themselves has lost a lot of time to Priadko. So Priadko leads the Pro-Am race. Daniel Moffat is looking absolutely untouchable, as he tends to be in the past couple of rounds. He's really shown that dominance here in this late game field. But the pit window is now open. As we can see, Paul Sims gone for an extremely early pit stop. And a very bizarre turn of events has left him down in the bottom, in the very bottom of the field. But he has completed his stop. Now, I'm not sure if that was due to altercation, maybe he had some repairs to do, or whether that is genuinely his strategy. If he's going to take this fuel load and take this race off that stop till the very end. He could go for one of the biggest pit strategy switch-ups of the season. If he can pull this off, that could be a very, very exciting prospect. On board with Starkey, as he has started to claw his way back to Richard Cook and has started to really make a name for himself after the second half of the season. I've seen him put in some really good results. So he had a very good pre-round, had a very good round 6, and then round 5 as well. Unfortunately, as we said, round 7 last time out didn't get the results he exactly wanted, but it did put him very close to the championship. Now, if Richard Cook cannot get away from Starkey, but does stay ahead, he wins this championship. Regardless of anything that Priadko does, this fight is between Cook and Starkey. If Starkey can get ahead, and Cook, I think, finishes 3rd in class tonight, then Starkey will have it. And, oh, speaking of what just happened there, as you see a massive sort of snap coming out of the blue Ferrari, that is going to put him in a very difficult position now, as he is going to be, before long, in the crosshairs of Gary Barham. Let's just see that again. Nope, looks like the camera has bugged out, but rest assured that is something that we would be keeping a lookout for. As you can see, Richard Cook gets away very cleanly and has now got about 2.5 seconds away from Starkey. Certainly looking like a little bit of a weapon. And he's going to be really giving it his all. James Payton is another driver who has certainly got their work cut out for him. Right on the back of Barham right now. And he has shown himself to be quite the force to battle against. He's really proven himself quite the force. So times will be a telling as to whether he can get around Barham and start to push for further positions. Whether he can start to make a gain, because he has got a really large time gap. A little bit close to the gravel, we saw there, but keeps it together, keeps it fairly nice and clean. 20-minute mark. Things are looking fairly calm. Yeah, things are looking quite calm at this point. Not much to be said about the on-track grid, but Brian Anderson has made the choice to come into the pits as Craig Starkey mirrors it. So Anderson and Starkey both in the pits now. They have gone also for a fairly early strat, and that has left a little bit of a vacuum in the track space. Because of course going in early means that you can more easily define your strategy. And as we can see, they are in the pits now. Whoever comes out first is going to be in a very good place. Looks like a couple of positional trades as Brian Anderson is now out of the pits. He has completed his stop, and Starkey is also out there as well. But Brian Anderson, he is going to be quickly looking at what he can do to get some space back and get some pace back. Paul Sims is going to be right behind Starkey, though, as someone who has also taken their stop. And all that is... Whoa, what happened there, Gavin Sullivan? What happened there? Very, very janky. Completely threw us for a loop there. How bizarre. Really don't know what to make sometimes when you just see drivers completely getting flung across the map. And I know it is netcode, it is a little bit of a connection issue, but still completely throws you as a commentator when that stuff happens. So here we go. That is going to be just Mikas yielding to Brian Anderson, and we are not going to see him fight for the space. This Brian Anderson is going to be a driver to watch. Paul Sims, another driver we'll be keeping a very close eye on as he's chasing down the Pro-Am driver of Craig Starkey. You know, this is where things could get a little bit dicey. Paul, of course, wants the position, wants it bad. Has been put all the way down in P15. Of course, 3 of the 15 drivers who have taken their stops. So as the track gets to optimum, this could be the perfect time for them to really gain some places. And now is where everything starts to fall into place. We get a little bit of a domino effect. While not as severe as other disciplines, say F1, once the leader goes into the pits, that is usually a signal for other drivers to follow suit. Either immediately or a couple of laps after. Where these drivers land is of course going to be the great fun. It's going to be the great challenge of all of this. There's a few more cars are now in the position to have themselves be in a really good spot to take places. We'll see who is feeling confident and feeling assured of themselves as the timings are going to see a few drivers make significant changes to their strategy and how they are going to come into a race. In fact, you can see that Starkey is pulling away from Paul Sims, it seems like. Sims was about 0.4 of a second when we last caught up with them. But now they are over a second behind. So they are actively losing time. As it stands, folks, coming to the halfway point. Moffitt, of course, leads the race, 14 laps down, and Krasnov is 3.5 seconds behind. Andrew Priatko with a 11-second deficit. Richard Cook about 5 seconds behind, but Richard Cook is going to be heading into the pit lane and is going to be seeing a big positional drop. But of course, getting that pit stop in does mean they will have an opportunity later James Payton has done well here to inherit a lot of positions. And as more drivers are going to be passing Cook through the pit lane, where he ends up and where he comes out is my main concern. Where he is going to be. So you can see a Brian Anderson coming up. It's not going to be coming out ahead of him. So where he comes out, let's just say Richard Cook is going to be passed by Dismukes. Be passed by Machine. Is Starkey going to be out ahead? This is his main rival, remember, the championship rival. This is going to be Richard Cook getting passed by Craig Starkey and potentially Paul Sims as well, as Paul Sims goes a little bit deep into the first corner. Yes, he is going to be passed, and Starkey is going to have not only the positional advantage on Richard Cook, his main championship rival and leader of this championship, but he's going to have Paul Sims there effectively as a buffer. So this has worked out perfectly for the blue and white Ferrari. It feels like heresy to say, but the Adidad livery holds strong and holds firm for us all. There we go, Bruce Hopkins now, starting to gain some time on Scott Cameron. Both of them McLarens, and in fact the lobby has seen a bit of a McLaren resurgence, or at least dominance in some aspects. We saw initially Lamborghini looked to be one of the fastest, and that is going to be nearly a little bit dicey, as I think Scott Cameron went a little bit deep before realising they wanted to go into the pits. There you go, that's going to be them pulling in, and that's going to be driver number 5 to be taking their stops. So a third of the pack has now taken their stops. And everyone is going to be strongly considering now whether they should be going in, whether they should bide their time. Track doesn't look to be changing in terms of conditions. It looks to be remaining overcast, but the track temperatures are dropping as we get later into the evening. Still optimum surface and still rub it in, so grip is going to be higher. But the real kicker is how are these drivers going to handle the last 15 to 20 minutes when maybe wits are at an end, drivers are at their limit. And as you can see here, Scott Cameron is going to be joining us down in P15 with a substantial gap to anyone else on the grid. So he's going to still be in the pits. He's only just coming out now, where you can see the very substantial, in fact, gap that has since formed. 20 plus seconds. That is not a small gap. We remain firm as Andrew Priadko is going to be the next driver to head in. 6 out of 15. And now we have 3 drivers and are going to make it once again a fight of 4, as Machine is going to be on track. Starkey is going to get around just fine. Paul Sims is going to be the next one to head round. Are they going to get a clean move against the amateur grade driver? Are they going to do it? Yes, they are. Paul Sims is round. There's going to be a bit of flashing coming from Richard Cook. Is there going to be a clean pass? Looks like Machine is going to be off. Ooh, into the grass. Not sure whether that was intentional or they just sort of lost the grip, but it seems like that is going to be Richard Cook out and past. And now Starkey is through with Priadko now back on the track. Priadko right in the crosshairs of Craig Starkey. So this Pro-Am Championship has certainly heated up a treat. With a lot of the drivers now having completed their pit stops. We don't have a full evaluation of the strategy yet, but it's safe to assume that what we could be seeing here from the Pro-Am is going to be a real challenge. Richard Cook chasing down Paul Sims. And the problem is he's now over 2 seconds behind Starkey. He wanted to get past Sims straight away because Starkey's his rival. His main opponent out on the track here. Gary Barham and Daniel Moffat, our race leader, have both gone into the pit. So Krasnov is going to be inheriting lead. And is going to have a little bit of track completely to themselves, which I'm sure is a nice sensation. Krasnov looking very comfortable here. Daniel Moffat now back out on track. Is going to be coming out in P7. He's going to be coming out just behind Brian Anderson. Very curious indeed. So Brian Anderson has in fact inherited the net lead of the race thanks to, I guess, a more ideal pit stop strategy. Barham is in and has just come out in P13. Cook is still chasing down Paul Sims. So we come to 25-minute mark left in this race. Richard Cook looking very frustrated by this point. He's very much looking frustrated, as now is where he's going to have to work for it. He doesn't get that free ride. Nobody gets a free ride in this competition, but he's been consistently stuck behind Paul Sims for multiple laps now, and Starkey isn't getting any further away, but he's not getting closer either. If Cook has passed, he could start closing the gap, but he doesn't have that option. Though that being said, a wide run from Paul Sims is going to see him go up into that P11 spot. Big skip over the chicane. You can see immediately he's trying to close that gap and push as hard as he can in order to make that move. Payton and Hopkins now in the pits. A couple more drivers who are completing their stops. Payton is going to be a very interesting case, as they have completed their stop and they are in P6 right now. So the timing board is yet to fully update, but they are in P6. Gary Barham down in P12 with Bruce Hopkins in P13. Priadko, though, is going to be getting around Dismukes as they went wide here. They're going to be seeing themselves making a fairly substantial move, and pressure is certainly being cooked up. Priadko is, of course, the driver to keep an eye on. Payton, with their stop also, has inherited the lead of Pro-Am. Brian Anderson has been the one to inherit as well. It seems like the undercut, the early stops, are what is powerful here. It seems to be the power play. Get your pit stops in early as you can. And that way, you don't have any credible threat. Looks like Starkey had a little bit of a wide run trying to get around Dismukes and hasn't materialised a move. Cook is now within a second of him. And is now within position to be considered a very, very credible threat. As Dismukes now has gone into the pits. Richard Cook looking for a move around the outside potentially. You have Priadko as well, who is right on the back. I'm going to switch to the helicam so we can get an idea of both moves. And you can see that Priadko is going to keep pushing. And he's going to have it on the inside of turn one. Is it going to be full commit? Sullivan and Dismukes in the pits now. Richard Cook, another driver, going full commit. Hasn't materialised into a move yet. Starkey has gone for the defense. Let's just quickly check and see what he did here. So, goes on a little bit of a wider run here. Does lose some time, but yeah, just does place his car right on the racing line. Make sure that there's no avenue for him getting by without fight. And that is going to see to fight another day is Craig Starkey. As now only 2 drivers remain out in the front of the pack. Sergei Krasnov and Robert Homer, both Porsche drivers ironically, have yet to pit fully. I wonder if we're going to see them pit very, very soon. For instance, Homer, lead of the Pro-Ams at the moment, but for how long? I do not know. Because he has got a very small time window between himself and Priadko, pits accounted for. Daniel Moffat now chasing down Brian Anderson for the net lead of Pro. Both are going to be going at it. Moffat here could have a very good pace opportunity. Peeks down the inside. Looking for the move there. He is going to be very tight, very close to the apex. Don't think Anderson was so willing to give it there. Put him right to the inside and oh, there you go. That is going to be your Moffat getting through. I'm not sure if there was contact there, to be fair, or whether that was just hard but fair racing. There you go. Looks like Moffat now has a clean run to try and get some pace, get some gap, as Richard Cook is continuing to chase Starkey down. And it's really seeming like he's on the ropes. He's not made that move yet, and I know how much he wants to. You can see just from the helicam how close he truly is, how much he wants that spot. So P4 in class, once you discount Robert Homer, who has yet to take the stop. P4 in class, Starkey P3. Of course, with drop rounds, that could affect things, but cannot stay behind this blue car. Just cannot. Because the points deficit combined with maybe a worse drop round being removed or adjusted for. Would see some mix-ups, we'll say. Mishin, interestingly, is one who has yet to take their pit stop, but is down in P13, so safe to say I think they're going to be at the bottom of the grid on today's escapades. Robert Homer, though, finally into the pits, which leaves just one car in Krasnov to continue going. He's only got 8 minutes to get his stop done. I think that's a very crucial point. That 8 minutes could elapse within a few laps. So he's a little bit of a weird line through that first corner, but does recover it for the second. He's looking to stay on the rubbered up line. As Robert Homer has dropped like a stone in terms of the grid standings. Radko is going to be getting that P4. But you say Robert Homer had a stop and go 30-second penalty applied to him, and that is not an insignificant amount of time to gain He's not sure what he's doing there, but he seems to be just pulling off to the side of the road, going back into the pits, and I think calling it a day. I think he's just had enough. He's not having that. There's no way he's going to be able to recover from that incident. And you can see he's going to be dropped down all the way to the bottom as Mishin takes a stop. Krasnov, interestingly, keeps going despite it all. Does remain steadfast, and he does keep going. Well, the mid-pack fight, though, is still raging on. Cook and Starkey back at it. Paul Sims could be a potential mixer in all of this, as he is within a second, and James Payton as well has been reeled in by this fighting trio. So everyone barring Krasnov has taken their stops now, and Krasnov is running out of time to take said stop. Oh, a little bit of a difficult line there for Craig Starkey. There's going to be a bit of a squeeze. There's going to be contact. And that is going to be Starkey into the wall in turn 17. Now, luckily, no positional trades. They're going to have some sportsmanship, and they're going to let the play stand. They're not going to take it. But still, Starkey, I have no doubt, is going to be frustrated about that one. Goes very deep in turn 1. And that is going to be all of the signal that Richard Cook needs to go for another go. Get another attempt in. Switch back on the inside of turn 2. Looks like Starkey's suffering for a little bit of a loss of grip because Cook is on it. He is the kitchen, and he is P2 in the class, at least when things update, because I think he may have had an issue up front. Oh no, my timing board just simply has not updated mine either, so he's going to be P3 in class when the timing board equilibrates and stabilizes. Paul Sims could be getting in on the action very soon, but that is if he can fend off Barham, who has come up in the backside in P9. Barham certainly has his pace, and he certainly has his wits about him. Safe to say Robert Homer is out, but Craig Starkey is going to go for another move and is going to retake the spot on Richard Cook here. See, just the quartet of cars really pushing and giving it absolutely everything. 4 minutes remain on the pit window. Now, luckily, it doesn't seem like Starkey has all that much damage, if any. Doesn't seem to be suffering aerodynamically or in any grip department. Looks like he's still got full control of his car, which is good. We don't want anyone suffering from a lack of rear or front downforce, which of course completely throws your car's balance. Gary Barham, though, is going to be chasing down Paul Sims. He's not going to make a move materialize, sadly, but he is certainly going to be putting that pressure on and making a statement to Sims to say, look, you may be the Pro Division, but you're down here, and you're in our territory, so good luck. Because I'm not going easy on you. Bit of a snap coming from Cook as well, as he does seem to be struggling a little bit with car control there. Krasnov with the very interesting decision to continue going again. So another push, and that is going to be a classic case of really wringing it out to the finish line on all fronts, strategically, pace-wise. Richard Cook is also going to be getting a 5-second penalty for their infraction and for their context, or for their contact, sorry, against Craig Starkey. So Starkey could be in a very good position to maybe even, I go as far to say, get the championship in the bag. Because if he can get ahead of maybe James Payton, that might net him the points that he needs to secure the championship once and for all. Oh, very inside line there for Richard Cook. Not sure if that is going to be investigated. See, Peyton is just up the road. Starkey's trying to close the gap. Trying to just make up whatever time he can. So you can bar him in the background. He's getting very close to Sims. Looks like Starkey is doing very well for himself. Let's check up on the rest, as Krasnov has now finally gone into the pits with just a minute and 30 left to go on the timer. If he didn't go this lap, he would have been, I believe it was DQ'd, thanks to failing to complete a mandatory pit stop. So there we go, comes into the pits, and this is where Moffat has a crucial opportunity to regain lead of the race. Of course, we'll have to wait and see where Krasnov comes out. Doesn't have to do much refueling, if any. Maybe he packed in a load of fuel at the start. Itromishin, 2 laps behind. You can see that's him just up ahead. And there we go, coming across now. I believe that is... Oh, wow. Krasnov is out ahead. And Krasnov, for all of that late stop, he's got 13 seconds on Moffat. He didn't have to refuel all that much, as we said. So he's going to remain completely out in front. That is insane. As the pit window is now closing, everyone has taken their stops, and Krasnov is 12.5 seconds away from Daniel Moffat. A ridiculous margin and a strategic masterclass. Absolute strategic masterclass in play. So where does this leave us now? Where this leaves us is with Priadko in the lead of Pro-Am, Bruce Hopkins in the lead of Amateur, and Sergei Krasnov. And oh, big slide from Richard Cook there. Sergei Krasnov leads the pros. And at the top end, the sharp end of the field, is our top runners. Starkey is now teetering on being within a second of Peyton. You can see how close he is there. A little bit of deep braking coming from Richard Cook just in the background. And looks like finally Gary Barham, after much pressure, has got past Paul Sims. Paul Sims has not found that pace that we are so used to him seeing. He has not found it. Now Starkey does teeter on the edge of within a second. Everyone is keeping an eye on this mid-pack battle. Barham could even be making a challenge on the likes of Cook. He doesn't have to, because Cook has got the 5 seconds. So he's going to be getting demoted to P5 in class and P9 overall, regardless of happenstance in this little battle. But if Starkey can jump up to P2 and Cook gets down to P5, that could be all of the difference it needs. Seven minutes left to go, and a heck of a race ahead of us as we come to the climactic areas. Oh, look at Richard Cook go. Look at him go. He's gonna keep the fight up. Saying even with the 5-second penalty, I'm not letting that deter me. I refuse to let that deter and define me right now. So quite the run here from all of these guys. Daniel Moffat has tried to regain time. He has regained a few seconds, which is a crucial step for him. But I don't know if it's enough. I really don't know if they're going to be able to make this one work for them. Nobody is going to save him now. As you can see, the massive gaps that he's pulled to Brian Anderson, which is very respectable. He's pulled a massive gap and is about 14 seconds ahead. So eyes once again stray back to this small pack near the bottom end. And to the humble quartet of Peyton, Starkey, Cook and Barham. Paul Sims has completely dropped off the radar in this fight. He's already gone 2 seconds down now that Barham is back ahead. A very curious and costly scenario. You see, Starkey is just trying to break the toe to Cook here. He doesn't really have much in the way of options. So he's having to get a little bit more tactical, as Cook is hungry for the position. Now, I don't know about you, chat, or those watching in the audience, but I think that Lightspeed Racing and the work that they do to put on events, try and improve. See, we had Road to Grand Finals, we have this, we also have a lot of other events. So just because we're finishing here does not mean that things are over by any stretch of the imagination. Fortunately, looks like Gavin Sullivan did not make it to the end. They got kicked from the server for an unknown reason. But we also have the Midweek League, we have Turbo Tuesdays, we've also got F1, iRacing, and a variety of other opportunities. But look close, listen close. As you can see, James Payton is off the track and he's going to be down into P6 as Starkey is going to capitalise. Richard Cook is also going to be alongside, looking to capitalise on Peyton's mistake. But remember, it's about that time deficit here. This could be the clincher. If Starkey can make it these last couple of laps, he could get this championship wrapped for his favour. James Peyton down into P7 now, as Cook is going to advance and Gary Barham is going to be short to follow. Paul Sims back into the pits, curiously enough. Wonder if there's maybe something he needed to fix, or he just did not have enough fuel to make it to the end of the race. But here you go, look down further, as you've got Gary Barham getting very close to the side of that Audi. Is there going to be a bit of a position squeeze? Nope. From my understanding, it looks like Gary Barham is up into P7. Peyton down to P8 following a mistake. Richard Cook up to P6, but will be demoted down to P8 regardless. And Starkey up into P5, or P2 in class. There you go, so Sergei Krasnov is on the final lap now. Brian Anderson seems to have made a mistake or is running extremely slowly. I want to see what's happened to them here. No, looks like they've completely pulled out. Looks like they have, let's say they're going slow on the racing line. And it is an interesting predicament, but it seems like Anderson has just dropped off completely on the pace. I think he might have run out of fuel. Yeah, look, you can see he stopped on the track. He's run out of fuel, I think. The yellows are out in the final 40 seconds. He's done. He can't do anything. Yeah, he just can't do anything. He's out. I think, yeah, he is out. Ooh, a little bit of a mistake there coming from Cook. And this is where it all stands, as Starkey is here, but it's going to be Krasnov. Final few corners, and the race is over. The final race of the season. Krasnov, for a strategic masterclass and not putting a foot wrong in his driving either, takes it away in comfy fashion by over 8 seconds. Krasnov is across the line, and that is race done. Daniel Moffat just behind a few seconds later. There you go, Brian Anderson is going to be finishing in P12. He's managed to limp his car across the start-finish line. Is there going to be any last-minute movements from this mid-pack, though? Any last-minute movements would be a very, very crazy prospect. Not impossible. See, Cook does try and really nail the chicane, but he doesn't quite do it. And across the line here, Starkey and Priadko and Cook are all in it. You can see they're all coming through to start finish right now. Bruce Hopkins as our P8 finisher. Very good work here from all the drivers out tonight. A great job had by all, and a great season that has drawn its arc to a close. Hopkins across the line. Cameron coming across the line. And then very shortly, we'll see Dismukes come across the line too. See a little bit of the celebratory flashing, because we've made it. We have made it to the end of the season. Time will tell where the paths go next. but I will certainly be around, and I'm not planning to disappear anytime soon. And with that, your race, folks, is over. And the final positions are thus: Krasnov and Moffat take P1 and P2, with Priadko and Starkey taking P3 and P4. P5 and P6 go to Barham and Payton, with Cook being demoted to P7 after his penalty. It's going to see him P5 in class, and that could be a championship swing. Hopkins and Cameron, along with Dismukes, complete the top 10, with Paul Sims, Brian Anderson, Dmitry Mishin, Gavin Sullivan, Robert Homer, and Nick Regazzoni. Regazzoni not making it to the end of the race. And that is going to be it, folks. Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this season and being a part of the experience with us. It's been amazing. You've been amazing. And hopefully we will see in the future some great fun to be had in future series. Definitely join in the Discord. Join us in the action, whether that is ACC, iRacing, F1, or other game disciplines. There's a home at Lightspeed, and we'll see you next time.